My name is Daniel. I'm 32 years old, and I grew up believing my father was the strongest man alive. He built his empire from nothing, turning a small repair shop into a massive chain of dealerships worth millions. But with great money comes great shadows. And my family's story is one of betrayal, greed, and shocking secrets. When my mom passed away, I was just 15. My father remarried 2 years later to a woman named Veronica. She was younger, glamorous, always perfectly dressed, always smiling just a little too wide. At first I wanted to give her a chance. I thought maybe she could fill the void my mother left behind. But Veronica wasn't a mother. She was a performer. Every word, every gesture felt staged. And behind closed doors, she barely spoke to me at all. Years passed, and my relationship with Dad grew complicated. He worked constantly, and when he was home, Veronica kept him distracted with parties, vacations, and her endless shopping sprees. I always felt like an outsider in my own house. Then one morning, I got the call that shattered my world. Dad had suffered a sudden heart attack. By the time I reached the hospital, it was too late. The funeral was surreal. Hundreds of people came to pay their respects. But when I looked at Veronica, all I saw was calculation in her eyes. She wasn't mourning a husband. She was securing her future. A week later, we sat in the lawyer's office. Veronica wore a black designer dress, crocodile tears in her eyes. I sat across from her, nervous, but hopeful. The lawyer cleared his throat, unfolded the will, and read the words that would change everything. To my beloved wife, Veronica, I leave the entirety of my estate. My stomach dropped. $50 million, all of it. To her. Not a dime, not a car, not a single piece of my father's empire left to me. I felt like the floor had been ripped out from under me. Veronica turned her head slowly and smirked. A smug, satisfied grin that made me want to scream. I stormed out of that office, my heart pounding, my mind racing. How could Dad do this to me? Did he really think so little of his only son? For weeks I spiraled. Friends tried to console me. Some told me to move on, to start fresh, to stop clinging to the past. But something inside me refused to let go. Then one evening, I got a call from someone I hadn't spoken to in years. My dad's old business partner. Henry. His voice was grave. "Daniel," he said, "meet me tomorrow. There's something you need to see." When I arrived at his office, Henry handed me a small, weathered envelope. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a letter. And a second will. This one was dated just a month before Dad's death. And it was completely different. To my son Daniel, I leave control of my company, my assets, and my estate. To Veronica, I leave a monthly allowance sufficient for her needs. I couldn't believe what I was reading. Tears welled in my eyes. My father hadn't abandoned me. He hadn't forgotten me. He had trusted me. But then came the catch. The will was hidden, never filed officially. Henry explained that Dad had been planning to update everything. But his sudden death meant the old will was still legally binding. If I wanted my rightful inheritance, I'd have to fight. And so began the most brutal legal battle of my life. Veronica hired expensive lawyers, tried to smear me in court, called me unfit, irresponsible, even estranged. But I had the truth. I had Henry's testimony. I had my father's words. The day the judge read the verdict, I'll never forget Veronica's face. Her smirk was gone, placed by shock, rage, and desperation. The court ruled the second will valid. My father's empire, his fortune, his legacy, it all came to me. Veronica got a small stipend, just enough to maintain a modest life. For the first time in years, I felt my father's presence beside me. He hadn't abandoned me. He had protected me even in death. And as I walked out of that courtroom, I realized something. Money can twist families. Greed can corrupt love. But truth has a way of shining through, no matter how deep it's buried. And in the end, my father's legacy wasn't just $50 million. It was the lesson that blood, loyalty, and love can outlast even the darkest betrayal.